Sage Network, uh, May 26th, day after GMO protests worldwide. And what to do? There are protests in every community, large city, almost in every state around the globe, basically. Um, Awareness of the GMO is one thing, and the foods aren't labeled. People don't know they're eating GMO. Almost every major commercial brand that is franchised uses GMO products, candy, Skittles, Twix, anything with corn syrup, almost any processed food, anything you buy from a box, ready made, or even dry goods, is probably a GMO. Your alternative is organic shopping. That's expensive. Business people, cities. Real solution, though, is for the individual groups, family units, nuclear family units, um, neighborhoods to start growing their own gardens, which introduces, of course, the problem of which seeds are GMO. You have to get non GMO seeds in order to have a natural food now in this day and age. Genetically modified organism. Uh, the second stage, of course, is dismantling and decreasing government influence. The government's shown themselves to be almost completely owned by corporations. They haven't heard the voice of the people probably in more than 130 years. The Department of Justice defected in 1875 with the ruling of Bradley versus Fisher, where they were immune to the laws of the United States themselves as officers of the court. Officers of the court are lawyers, judges, clerks, cops. Anybody that works for the court is an officer of the court. And they're pretty much immune to lawsuits, which by de facto means they've defected from the United States, acting as an agency or department outside of the laws of the United States, which they themselves would administer. There's no way they can be good about this. They're not uh, aware of the effects of their own laws. They show absolutely no uh, effort to change themselves or the laws, which, even if they know are mistaken, are wrong. Myself, I had a mingled record driver's license from 1996. I mean, 1986, sorry. Where the driver's license issued to me by the state of Tennessee in the fall of Tennessee was actually already belonging to one or more other people than Amy Jackson in Sullivan County, whoever she might be. I don't know these people, never have. And mingled records means they have no idea what's going on. Their records are inaccurate. I've been in 4 federal courts as a pro se plaintiff, and not one of them has addressed the issue. 2 courts have actually sidestepped, refused to issue summons over a 3-month period. The federal court in Los Angeles. So, their records, the most basic level of governing that people should and would expect, they're either not capable of or not willing to, or both. My bet is they're not even capable of. A series of bad decisions. Decisions of the courts are not laws. Those are decisions. Those, by the Constitution, should only be recorded, and the charges that, just random charges that appear, should no way be propagated through a network and should be totally expunged. So, I don't think suing Monsanto is going to be a big deal to begin with. I mean, it would be an uphill battle. Legislation, of course, was bought out apparently by Monsanto. They bought the media networks. And again, the smart thing to do is, well, just grow some organic food, make sure your food's fresh, bought locally, farmers markets, organic foods. I was already doing that. I've been doing that for 10 years. It was instinctive. I didn't like the way the processed foods were. I didn't like their effect. I didn't enjoy how I felt eating them. So, and being from Santa Barbara, perhaps the mindset there. No one does. Everybody goes to the fresh organic markets, and buying stores from a food is processed food is just not socially acceptable. But and to do all that, just boycott all your grocery markets, all processed foods. You'd have to buy your heirloom seeds, they're called, like traditional seeds, probably from overseas, places like Ireland or somewhere that has blocked uh, GMOs. But then there's a situation of cross pollination. So usually you would grow your own seeds, and each year have seeds and food for next year. And that way cultivate and preserve your own variety, preferred variety, such as Native Americans did, as I mentioned in part one. And then have a self-sustaining farm. So, but due to cross-pollination, that might not be possible. You might have different strains occurring. And again, all this was just normal common sense, things that could happen. Things you could do, everybody could do, as long as everybody did it. Everybody boycotted the large farming industries. Bovine milk has Monsanto hormones in it to increase milk production, which is then sent through the milk and absorbed in the bodies, and apparently is also carcinogenic. So it goes on and on as far as the large commercial agriculture is no longer a friend, and guess what? Neither is your government. I'm a research scientist. I have been a research scientist in 3 and 4 different fields: biology, physics, computers, sciences, electrical engineering. I had a full scholarship from collegiate degrees, and been an officer in the United States Cavalry, been through ROTC, and just to tell the populace, you're largely unaware. Just not. There's pockets of society and places where it's common knowledge not to do such things, and peer pressure alone would do that. And that peer pressure is not from your television. It's not from the labels on the food. It's not from the manufacturer. It's peer-to-peer pressure, tribe-to-tribe pressure. Tribes don't move around anymore. It used to be a nomadic tribe would have a chief that would everybody to get together, no matter what their individual pulling and yearning was: tool making, gathering, hunting, clothes making. Uh, it wasn't until agricultural times that the so-called chief of nomadic tribes was kind of obsolete. Not as a person, might be a great person, might be better than anybody else, but the central thing of where to move, when to move, and where to move to, and was all that one person's decision. While everybody had their distinct individual personification: spiritual, physical, hunting, gathering, feeding, cooking, whatever it might be, horse breeding, who knows. But the individuality of groups has declined since the agricultural culture has set in, and especially since mass media has occurred. So, I'm moving back toward individualism. Don't try to think you're from a certain place and that gives you individuality. That I've traveled the entire United States. I've driven around in circumference around the entire border of the United States. That all across the Great Lakes, outlining just like it is on the map as far as the road would go. For 2 years, I took this trip, and it is the common culture to say they're from a local place. The borders matter. The borders don't matter anymore than the tribal leadership did making decisions. Individuals have to find intellectual leaders now. They have to find their heroes have to be somebody who knows what's going on and will inform them, and make that the de facto mentality that is maintained, the word that is spread. uh, that person's not going to be there, and an individual well, person's thoughts and process should always be there for any decision being made. And by word of mouth, peer to peer. So yeah, GMOs are you'd have to boycott. In Europe, they made guerrilla warfare to drive them out of the certain countries. Germany is another country. The list goes on and on. Just do a basic web search, a little bit of data mining into the subject, and you'll see the countries that have GMO banned and have healthier foods, which you'd have to buy the seeds from. Did sort of a if you look at the agricultural methods as a war, that the food source is being attacked. Then in Europe, they went through and destroyed those crops, literally at night, making night raids, making protests. Groups were formed. Uh, I haven't heard of property damage such as industrial complexes manufacturing such poisons being destroyed or anything. And sometimes they'd even replant those crops. And the nonsensical courts that exist today determine that GMOs do not need to be tested because it's not a new product. Since everything has DNA, that genetically modified crops are substantially the same as any other crop. There is no testing except for independent labs doing such, taking it upon themselves, which have all been negative. Every single independent test reported negative results on GMO products, crop products. Now, the health industry, they keep theirs sealed. They make all kinds of new medicine or techniques or even modifications, but it's sealed. It's not out there being spread to everybody. In America, there is a centralized agricultural system. Same food goes to everybody. And if you haven't traveled, don't be surprised to see the exact same foods in every store all around the United States, especially the large chains of superstores. Where you're going to see your variety is in your whole food markets or your fresh food markets or farmers markets or co-ops. There are certain places have co-op stores where the local farmers sell their goods at that store. And you'll see the varieties of foods there. So there's ways around it, things to do it. Best, of course, is if you know your own food, know where it comes from, support local, go beyond support, become your local farmer. Grow your own food, know where it comes from, go to the farm. Everybody's complaining about not having a job in the economy. Well, that's it. Now, when you boycott a company or processed foods, the price is going to dramatically drop. You're going to have people saying, well, it's so much cheaper and easier to get the cheap GMO food. And I can tell you, as an herbalist from personal experience, I've had people complaining about leaky gut, psoriasis, all kinds of ailments, and particularly the people who are eating lots of processed foods. Nutritional bars were a main source of food for my father, Oki. Came back after a few years of traveling and treated him with some slippery elm. But you can herbally treat the stuff, most of it. But again, don't eat GMO. It's not a food. It's a agricultural weapon. And think of it as a strategy in wars. Don't try to transfer too much intelligence to the GMO people. I mean, anybody who would depopulate the world bee population with insecticides, which means pending beyond scenario uh, global threat, probably isn't that intelligent enough to have a conspiracy attached to it. It is stupidity and greed and a misguided corporate loyalty that has wished to cover up and decrease the negative publicity. So, uh, Yeah, the mass farmers, commercial farmers could be approached. Concerned groups could make an effort to change agricultural ways. But the idea that someone's going to take care of the people widespread across America is the number one problem. People need to realize they need to get out there, grow their own food. It's not that hard. It's pretty simple. I mean, it's a natural thing. A caveman could do it. Cavemans did. So, that's basically it. Do whatever you can, whatever's possible, whatever means that you have to do to rid GMO, especially the insecticides, primarily the insecticides and herbicides, and poisons being sprayed in the air. If you're in a suburb, it might be sprayed beside your house by roadways, street construction crews. Pry every stone standing and get rid of these insecticides and pesticides. They weren't necessary for hundreds of thousands of years of humans' existence. Agriculture has been around for 20, 30,000 years. And only within the last 20 years has it become a mess. Scientists agree, people agree, all the scientists in individual studies confirm that the GMO policies and agricultural policies, the Monsanto herbicide and pesticide, they've made crops specifically to mass sell Roundup and other herbicides. That was it. It's a corporation trying to sell the product, and it was so profitable that they're able to buy up media networks, 20 and 30 networks at a time, that they're able to make the largest contributions to politicians, that they will hire a lawyer away from it. It's standard practice if a state is sued, that and if you try to sue a state for whatever reason, constitutional rights or whatever malarkey that the courts tell you that a person can sue for, they'll come through and hire that lawyer, not then, as that would be a conflict of interest, but a promise of a retainer in the future that they'll use him for some type of legal defense for the state, and if he drops you and throws your case. So you can see this as a pro se plaintiff. You can go through and find the ins and outs and particulars of the court, and they are pretty much useless to the real world. And Monsanto is not part of the real world. That's pretty much it. Effect return. Diminish the change. Increase variety. Use heritage and traditional seeds. Decrease government influence. Abandon the boycott of cheaper foods in supermarkets. Contact and change the minds of agricultural farmers. Make sure they're all organic, bovine. A middle class money can talk in such a way. Get a farm. Plant yourself. Increase community awareness. Grow more farms. So there are more points to make. And somehow, all of us together, rise up and end insecticides now. That is primary. All the other stuff I mentioned affects large parts of the population, affects all the people. It can be considered agricultural warfare. But the insecticides are beyond scenario global calamity apocalypse. traveling bard, bringing you the news. Only news left. Choose your statement and how you want to make that statement. Will it be the last statement made by your peoples? Or can your peoples make it heal the ravaged earth? All right.